Hello, as we look this week at number 5 in our series on the great controversy, Faith Against All Odds. First of all, it's a bit of an odd title, isn't it? Are we really saying that the faith that we have is not reasonable, against all odds in that kind of sense? I hope not. I think what the title is really meant to be saying is that despite whatever comes at us, we are still wanting to hold on to our trust in God. That's what it's all about. And there's a lot of interesting directions that we could go with this particular study. There's some quotes there from C.S. Lewis, for example. Faith, in the sense in which I'm here using the word, is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted in spite of your changing moods. And I really do think that's so important, isn't it? Yes, you've thought about it. Yes, you've worked things out. And yes, you know that God is there and He is with you. He's on your side. He's helping you and so on. Despite your changing moods, sometimes you just don't feel like it. But we should know that He is there, because faith is not based on feelings. It's based on the evidence that God given us. We are told we are supposed to have an intelligent faith, not an intellectual faith, an intelligent faith, one that makes sense. And that's what this faith against all odds is about, I think. We're given material there in Psalms and John and 2 Peter, Ephesians, so on. Read those texts and see how they fit together, and then look at what this really does mean in terms of our belief, our trust in God, making sense and being reasonable, because we've looked at the evidence and decided that what God has said is true. There's a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, which I think is quite relevant here. A faith that cannot survive collision with the truth is not worth many regrets. And I would want to endorse that, even though it's coming from someone who probably isn't what we would call religious. It's not that we have a blind faith. It's not that we say, well, you just have to believe. Believe what? Doesn't matter. Just believe. That's what some people have told me. No, it's about trusting in the God that we know. Why did Jesus come? So that we could get to know God, that we could see Him in action, to see the kind of person He truly is, despite all the lies that the devil has told about Him. And Jesus Himself was not asking for blind faith, for mere acceptance. You know, there's a great story in the Gospel of Luke about Jesus coming to His disciples after the resurrection. Clopas and his fellow disciple, I think it probably was his wife, walking down to Jericho, and they're all depressed, and they're saying, what happened? We thought this was going to be the one, the Messiah, and so on, and now He's been crucified. And Jesus does not appear in blinding glory like He might have done at the Transfiguration, for example. None of that. He just gets into step beside them and says, what are you talking about? What are you discussing as you walk along the way? And they say, haven't you heard? Are you from Mars or something? You must be the only person that doesn't know what's happened here in Jerusalem this past week. And they go on to express their disappointment in Jesus. And this is Jesus walking beside them, but they don't recognize Him. And that's really important. It's important because Jesus is not wanting them to believe just because He said so. What does He do? He remains incognito, as it were, and then takes them throughout the whole sweep of Old Testament history, through Moses and the prophets, it says. And they are, what could I say? At the end, it says their hearts were strangely warmed. They were convinced, not because of Jesus's presence there with Him, but because it was the truth, and they could see that it made sense. They must have been asking themselves at the end though, but if this is all true and Jesus was truly the Messiah, why did he die? Now what? And then of course when Jesus breaks bread, he is recognized and he doesn't hang around. Immediately he's gone because he's done what he needed to do. That's the kind of perspective that I think we take away from this lesson. So may God bless you as you study and think about these really important things.